I never thought that at 64 years old, I would be standing in my kitchen at 3 a.m, staring at my phone with trembling hands, reading messages that made my heart race in a way it hadn't in 30 years. Messages from a man who wasn't my husband. Messages that made me feel alive, desired, and terrified all at once. My name is Margaret, and I need to tell you what happened because I'm drowning in guilt, confusion, and something I haven't felt since I was in my 20s. Pure, raw desire. But before I explain how I got here, you need to understand who I was before everything changed. I've been married to Richard for 37 years. We met when I was 27, fresh out of a bad relationship, working as a paralegal in downtown Chicago. He was stable, kind, predictable. He promised me security, and God knows I needed that after the chaos of my early 20s. We built a life together in Oak Park, raised 2 wonderful children who are now adults with families of their own, and I thought I was content. I really did. But somewhere along the way, between mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences, between his promotion to regional manager and my transition to working from home, we stopped seeing each other. Not physically. We still shared a bed, still had dinner together most nights, still attended our grandchildren's birthday parties side by side. But we stopped really seeing each other. The last time Richard looked at me with genuine desire was probably 15 years ago. Maybe more. I'm not trying to make excuses for what I did. I'm just trying to help you understand how a woman who never even considered cheating, who judged friends who had affairs, who believed in her vows with every fiber of her being, ended up where I am now. It started 6 months ago when I joined a book club at the local community center. Richard encouraged me, actually. He said I needed to get out more, make friends, stop spending so much time alone in the house. The irony isn't lost on me now. That's where I met David. He was the only man in a group of 12 women, and at first I barely noticed him. He was quiet, thoughtful, always had interesting insights about whatever we were reading. He was 58, recently divorced, and worked as an architect. He had this way of listening, really listening, that made you feel like what you were saying mattered. If you're enjoying this story and can relate to feeling unseen in your own life, please hit that subscribe button. We're working toward 5,000 subscribers, and your support means everything. Click that red button and join this community where we share real, raw stories that matter. The first time I really noticed David was during a discussion about a novel where the main character was struggling with the loss of identity after retirement. I mentioned how I sometimes felt invisible, like I'd become just a grandmother, just a wife, no longer Margaret the individual. David looked at me across the circle and said, "I see you." Just like that. Simple. Direct. And something inside me cracked open. We started talking after meetings, just casual conversations in the parking lot that stretched from 5 minutes to 15 to half an hour. He told me about his marriage, how his ex-wife had an affair with her tennis instructor, how he'd felt inadequate and unwanted for years before she finally left. I told him about the loneliness of being with someone who treats you like a roommate instead of a partner. I knew I was playing with fire. I knew it. But God help me. It felt so good to be seen again, to have someone light up when I walked into a room, to feel like I mattered as more than just a function in someone else's life. The text started innocently enough. He sent me a quote from a book we'd discussed. I responded with a thank you and a smiley face. Then it became daily good morning messages. Then pictures of sunsets with captions like, "Thought of you when I saw this." Then late-night conversations that Richard never noticed because he was already asleep by 9:30, snoring softly while I sat in the bathroom with my phone, feeling guilty and exhilarated in equal measure. 3 months ago, David asked me to meet him for coffee. "Just coffee," he said. "No pressure." I said yes. I told Richard I was meeting a girlfriend from the book club. The lie came so easily it scared me. We sat in a small cafe in Evanston, and for 2 hours we talked about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, our regrets. He told me I was beautiful. Not in a sleazy way, not like he was trying to get something from me. He said it like it was a simple fact, like he was commenting on the weather. You're beautiful, Margaret. I hope someone tells you that every day. Tears sprang to my eyes because no one had told me that in years, not even on my birthday. That's when he reached across the table and took my hand. And I let him. I sat there in a public cafe, wearing my wedding ring, and I let another man hold my hand like I was his. The touch was electric. I felt it everywhere, that simple connection of palm against palm, and I realized I was starving for human touch that wasn't just functional, that wasn't just passing the salt or a pat on the shoulder. When I got home that day, Richard was watching a baseball game. He asked if I had fun, and I said yes, and that was that. He didn't ask follow-up questions. He didn't notice I'd put on makeup or worn the blue dress he used to love. He just turned back to the TV, and I went upstairs and cried in the shower. Here's where I need you to understand something about me. I'm not a bad person. I'm not someone who takes her vows lightly. But I was dying inside, slowly becoming a ghost in my own life, and David made me feel real again. Please, if this story is resonating with you, help us reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers. Click subscribe right now and be part of this journey. Your support helps us continue sharing these honest, difficult stories. The second coffee date happened 2 weeks later, then a third. By the fourth time, we weren't even pretending it was just friendly anymore. We'd hold hands across the table, and he'd look at me with an intensity that made my stomach flip like I was a teenager again. I can't stop thinking about you, he told me one afternoon in early spring. We were sitting in his car in a park by the lake, watching joggers go past. I know this is complicated, Margaret. I know you're married, but I need you to know that you're all I think about. I should have ended it right there. I should have been strong, gone home, maybe suggested marriage counseling with Richard, tried to fix what was broken in my actual marriage. But instead, I said, I think about you too, all the time. What do you want? He asked me, his blue eyes searching mine. I don't know, I whispered. I'm so confused. I love my husband. I do. But I don't feel alive with him anymore. And with you, I feel everything. He leaned closer, and I knew he was going to kiss me. I had about 3 seconds to stop it, to pull back, to preserve the line I hadn't technically crossed yet. But I didn't. I let him kiss me, and I kissed him back. And it was like being struck by lightning after years of darkness. We kissed in that car for 20 minutes, like teenagers. And when I finally pulled away, breathless and shaking, I saw myself reflected in the car window. My lipstick was smudged, my hair was messy, and my face was flushed. I looked alive. I looked like me again. Don't stop, I found myself saying, even though I knew I should be running in the opposite direction. But we did stop, that day at least. I went home, my lips still tingling, my whole body humming with something I'd thought was dead forever. Richard was in the garage, organizing his tools. He smiled absently when I came in and asked what I wanted for dinner. Like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't just betrayed 37 years of marriage in a parking lot by the lake. That night, lying next to my sleeping husband, I felt everything go through me. Guilt, shame, excitement, terror, desire, confusion. I was a mess of contradictions. How could I love Richard and want David? How could I be a good grandmother, a respectable woman in my community, and also be someone who made out with another man in a car? If you're hooked on this story and want to see how it ends, don't forget to subscribe. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers, and each one of you makes a difference. Hit that subscribe button and join our community. The affair, because that's what it was now, continued. We met once or twice a week, sometimes just for coffee and conversation. Sometimes we'd drive out to a quiet spot and talk for hours, holding hands, stealing kisses. We never slept together. I know that sounds like a technicality, like I'm trying to minimize what I did, but it felt important to me. Like as long as we didn't cross that final line, I could still somehow be a good person. David never pushed. He said he'd take whatever I could give him, that just being near me was enough. That kind of patience, that kind of acceptance, only made me want him more. My daughter, Jessica, came to visit about 4 months into this mess. She's 34, lives in Boston with her husband and 2 kids. She cornered me in the kitchen while Richard was playing with the grandchildren in the backyard. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked. "You seem different, distracted." My heart stopped. "I'm fine, honey. Just busy with the book club and some volunteer work." She studied me with those sharp eyes she got from her father. "You're not having an affair, are you?" I actually laughed, a high, nervous sound. "Jessica, what a question." "I'm serious, Mom. You have this look, like you're somewhere else all the time, and you keep checking your phone." "I'm 64 years old," I said, trying to sound indignant. "I'm not having an affair," but the lie sat heavy in my stomach for days after she left. Because she was right. I was somewhere else all the time. I was with David, even when I was physically present with my family. The turning point came 2 months ago. David asked me to go away with him for a weekend. Just 2 days, he said. To a small town in Wisconsin, a place where nobody knew us. No pressure. Separate rooms if I wanted, just time together without looking over our shoulders. I said I'd think about it. But we both knew I was going to say yes. I told Richard I was going on a women's wellness retreat with some ladies from the book club. He barely looked up from his iPad. "That's nice, Margie. Have fun." Margie. He used to call me that when we were young, but now it just sounded like a diminishment, like he'd reduced me to something small and manageable. The drive up to Wisconsin with David was surreal. We sang along to old songs on the radio, stopped at a roadside diner for lunch, held hands across the console. It felt like we were the only 2 people in the world. We checked into a bed and breakfast in a tiny town called Cedar Grove. David had booked 2 rooms, just like he'd promised, but we both knew we'd only use one. Standing in that room, with its floral wallpaper and antique furniture, I had a moment of absolute clarity. If I did this, if I slept with David, there would be no going back. I couldn't pretend anymore that this was just an emotional connection, that I hadn't really betrayed my marriage. This would be the final step, the ultimate betrayal. "We don't have to do anything," David said softly, reading my mind like he always did. "We can just talk, watch movies. I'm happy just being with you, Margaret." Subscribe now if you want to know what happened next. We're building toward 5,000 subscribers, and your click makes all the difference. This is a community where we share real stories about real choices. Be part of it. I looked at this man who made me feel seen, desired, alive, and then I thought about Richard, probably watching TV in his recliner, completely unaware that his wife was standing in a hotel room with another man, contemplating destroying everything they'd built together. "I need to call my husband," I said suddenly. David nodded, stepped outside to give me privacy. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, and I called Richard. "Hi, honey," he answered, sounding distracted. I could hear the TV in the background. "Richard, I need to talk to you about something." "Can it wait? The game's on." And there it was, the perfect encapsulation of our marriage. Everything could wait. I could always wait. "No," I said firmly. "It can't wait." I heard him sigh, heard the TV volume lower. "Okay, what's going on?" "When was the last time you really looked at me?" Silence, then confused. "What do you mean?" "When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time you held my hand just because you wanted to touch me? When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my fears, what I wanted out of life?" More silence. Margie, where is this coming from? Are you okay? Is something wrong with the retreat? I started crying. Richard, I'm not at a retreat. I'm in Wisconsin, with a man I met at book club. The silence that followed was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, sharp, awake. What? I haven't slept with him, I said quickly. But I wanted to. I want to. And I need you to know that I've been dying in our marriage for years, Richard. I've been disappearing and you haven't even noticed. Come home, he said, his voice cracking. Please, Margie, come home right now. I don't know if I want to, I whispered. That's the problem. I don't know what I want anymore. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. David came back in, took one look at my face, and wrapped me in his arms. What happened? I told him. Not everything, but enough. What do you want to do? That question again. What did I want? For 37 years, I'd done what everyone else wanted. Been the good wife, the good mother, the good grandmother. When did I last ask myself what Margaret wanted? I want you, I said. God help me. I want you. What happened next was beautiful and terrible and confusing and perfect all at once. We made love, and it was nothing like the mechanical, occasional encounters I'd had with Richard in recent years. It was passion and connection, and being seen and wanted and desired. At 64 years old, I felt everything go through me. Every emotion, every sensation, every moment of being truly alive. But when it was over, lying in David's arms while he slept, I cried. Because I'd crossed the line. There was no uncrossing it now. If you're still with me, please subscribe to the channel. We're working so hard to reach 5,000 subscribers, and you can help by clicking that button right now. Join us in creating a space for honest, real conversations. The drive back the next morning was quiet. David held my hand, kissed it occasionally, told me he loved me. Those words should have made me happy, but they just made everything more complicated. When I got home, Richard was sitting at the kitchen table, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. He stood when I came in, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in decades. Fear. Don't leave me, he said, just like that. No anger, no accusations, just fear and desperation. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, I told him honestly. Who is he? Does it matter? Do you love him? Did I? Was what I felt for David love, or was it just the intoxication of being wanted again? I don't know. Maybe. I'm so confused, Richard. I've been a terrible husband, he said, tears streaming down his face. I'd never seen Richard cry. Not when his father died, not when our son broke his arm falling from a tree, not ever. I got comfortable. I took you for granted. I stopped trying. I'm so sorry, Margie. I slept with him, I said, needing him to know the full truth. Last night, I slept with him. He flinched like I'd hit him, but he didn't leave. He just stood there crying, his whole world falling apart, and he said, I still love you. I know I haven't shown it, but I do. Please give me a chance to fix this. That was 6 weeks ago. Since then, I've been living in this awful limbo. Richard has been trying, really trying. He books date nights, brings me flowers, asks about my day, tells me I'm beautiful. All the things I've been craving for years he's suddenly doing. But David is still texting me. Still telling me he misses me. That those 2 days were the best of his life. That he's willing to wait however long it takes. My daughter knows something is wrong. She calls more often, asks pointed questions. My son visited last week and asked if Dad and I were getting divorced. The whisper network in our community is vicious. Someone saw David and me having coffee months ago, and now there are rumors. Our friends are choosing sides before there are even sides to choose. I'm 64 years old, and I'm more confused than I've ever been in my life. Do I stay with Richard and try to rebuild what we had, knowing that it took the threat of losing me for him to finally see me again? Do I leave my marriage of 37 years for a man I've known for less than a year, who makes me feel alive, but might just be a symptom of my midlife crisis? Do I leave both of them and learn how to be alone, to find myself without defining myself through a relationship? I look at Richard across the dinner table, trying so hard to win me back, and I feel guilty and sad and sometimes even hopeful that we could rediscover what we lost. Then I get a text from David, and my heart races, and I remember what it feels like to be desired, not just needed. Last week, Richard suggested we renew our vows. He wants to have a ceremony with our kids and grandkids, wants to recommit to being the husband he should have been all along. David sent me a message the same day saying he found a house he wants to show me, a place he's thinking of buying, with enough room for both of us to have our own spaces, our own lives, together but independent. Two men, two completely different futures, and me in the middle, paralyzed by choice. This is where I need your help. I need to know I'm not alone in this mess. If you've ever felt torn between duty and desire, between the life you've built and the life you dream of, please subscribe to this channel. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers, and your support means everything. Click that red button and let me know you're with me in this journey. I don't have an ending for this story yet, because I'm still living it. Some days I think I'll stay with Richard, honor my vows, try to build something new from the ashes of what we let die. Other days I think about David's hands, the way he looks at me, the feeling of being truly alive, and I think maybe I deserve that kind of happiness, even if it cost me everything else. What would you do in my place? Would you stay with the man you've loved for nearly 4 decades, who only started trying when he was faced with losing you? Would you leave for the man who makes you feel things you haven't felt in years, but who you barely know? Or would you walk away from both and learn how to be whole on your own? I'm standing at a crossroads, and every direction looks both terrifying and possible. At 64, I thought I knew who I was, what my life would look like until the end. Now I don't know anything except that for the first time in decades, I'm making a choice for myself, not for everyone else. Whatever I decide, someone will be hurt. Maybe everyone will be hurt, including me. But at least I'll have chosen.